How's it going, guys? Okay. Breathe. Awesome. Okay. I just noticed a thing which I think is going to be really useful for us, which is all the hard questions came out right at the end there, and they hit you, boom, 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 which was just amazing to behold, right? Now we can spread those hard questions around the panel and see if they can help. So there's some beauties that the audience has already given us. What we're going to do is do about 25 minutes of questions that I've got written down and that we've worked out, and then it's back to you guys to see if you can use the collective brains that you have here to solve whatever problems you've got back in your teams. So this is a big chance for you guys. This is a big chance, pay attention. One of the things that always used to make me laugh when I used to be in kind of consultancy and doing software and so on for clients was they'd say, it's just a tiny little phone. How hard can it be to make it do the software thing that I want to do, right? But everybody here today and everybody in the audience knows that organizing your team to make that thing happen, or your teams to make that thing happen, is just insanely difficult, and that's what we're all really talking about. Cool. Okay, so just to get us started...
People actually say, oh, this phone is so small, why can't it do more things?
Sorry?
Do people actually say this phone is so small, why isn't it easier to make it do things?
Yeah. So I had clients who said to me, it's tiny. I mean, look at it. It's so little, right? I mean, it can't be. It's not many pixels on it. It can't be that difficult to make it do what we want. And yet, you get entire banks and entire mega organizations who cannot persuade that little tiny pane of glass to do the right thing.
It's an alternate world where making things smaller makes them faster and better and easier to work with.
Yeah. I mean, there's so little room to mess up, I guess, was what they were saying. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, we've already gone off topic, but we're allowed to do that. It's panel time. Okay, so I hope you're all thinking up questions that you're going to ask soon. Very quickly, though, one more time, just to warm everybody up and remind everybody who we've got here. We're going to go around and say, what's your name? What do you do and where do you do it? And what is your favorite breakfast? Okay, are you ready? And we'll start with Ridhwana.
So my name is Ridhwana. I'm a software engineer at Smile Identity. I'm also the co-founder of a non-profit organization, Casimets. What is my favorite breakfast? I skip breakfast usually, so...
You skip breakfast?
I don't have one.
Wow.
But if I had to go with something, it's fruit.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ashi?
Hi, my name is Ashi. I am a senior software engineer at Apollo. I'm working on the server team right now, so I'm working on the next version of the GraphQL server. And my favorite breakfast, so I usually have like a protein smoothie because I'm feeling healthy, but I had to name my favorite one. I really like kind of small plates. Like, I love waffles, so a little waffle, a little scrambled tofu, a little like vegan breakfast sausage. That's sweet and savory. That's my mix.
This is already interesting.
I like
Nothing versus little plates. Warren?
I like big... Hello. Yes. Okay, well, my name's Warren. I'm an iOS tech lead at Luna. And my favorite breakfast, that's another hard question. You're not helping me. So if I had to choose, Eggs Benedict. Yeah.
Sort of a solid, nutritious, rich
super
breakfast.
healthy.
Is it super healthy? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. My name is Dean. I'm a full-time human, and I teach organizations and teams to be more human overall, and I do it on Earth. My favorite breakfast is success. Can't help myself.
Is that the title of your next book?
But on a more real note, probably tasty wheat. I don't know if people know or remember tasty wheat.
As opposed to the tasteless kind of wheat, is that?
Correct, yeah. It was a thing, it was called Taste to Wheat. My grandmother made it for me and it was fantastic every time.
And there's diversity for you right there. Diversity of breakfast. Fantastic. Okay, I got two directions I could go in, and I'm going to take the risky direction, which is to kind of drag us back to some of the questions and some of the things I heard this afternoon. And so I'm going to try chucking this out for the panel, and I hope that you all have a great time with it. The question we've had is, what do you do? What do you do? Sorry. There we go. What do you do if your jerks think everyone is oversensitive, and your oversensitive people think everyone is a jerk? And Dean said, feedback given at the wrong time is an insult. Okay, and I think there's something going on there. There's something that joins these two together. And maybe the topic of culture is involved in this as well. The idea of how do you get people to communicate frankly and transparently and honestly when they are diverse and when they might either be oversensitive or a jerk and so on. What are the tricks? So I guess the question I'm chucking out for the panel is, how do you get clear feedback and good communication when you also could risk hurting people's feelings? Okay? That's a question.
Should we just go?
Just go.
Just go.
Just take it and run.
You're going to hurt people's feelings regardless. It's planet Earth. But I do think that there's an element of, you just mentioned culture, etc. So what was hard for me when I started working in technology was this idea that like I don't have to wait my turn to talk about the thing I care about, and that my opinion matters. That took a really long time for me to kind of get into a place where I go, oh, actually, I do know this thing, and I can provide value. And I think culturally, a lot of people are trained to kind of wait their turn. So like, if you're a manager and you have a team and you're going, well, these people aren't giving me feedback, so everything's hunky-dory, spending a little bit more time paying attention to whether or not people are just being forthcoming, or whether or not the feedback you're giving is landing, and changing your approach per individual, and I think that's the big thing, is the thing that I found the most success with. And to then not assume that the way I'd like feedback is the way that that person would like feedback, or the way what I enjoy doing even, or the way I value things moving forward may not be relevant for the other person.
So understanding the kind of unique needs of each person in the team and giving them some individual feedback in their way is a good basis.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but also just, you can't avoid hurting people's feelings, I think, as long as you've got the right intent. Sometimes things are going to get misconstrued because we've been on this planet forever, and the one thing we're bad at is communication.
I think it's also quite important to model receiving feedback and delivering it from leadership. So the managers and the higher order managers need to be not just, they're sort of the typical, like, my door is always open. No, it's not. It's definitely not. Or like, oh, and like we're seeking feedback on this, but like you get a forum and you're like, oh, this forum is not going to go anywhere. But actually, the more opportunities you have to actually demonstrate that, for leaders to demonstrate that, oh, I'm getting this feedback, it's not pleasant for me right now, like it's maybe very raw, and I'm going to respond to it and take it in the moment, that helps a lot. I think it helps open that degree of vulnerability for everyone.
So how does a leader get feedback and take feedback? What does it look like when that happens? Have you ever done it yourself, or have you seen it happen?
I've done it myself. I've seen it happen. I've also seen it happen. Sometimes you can synthesize it, right? So like when I taught at boot camp, we would sometimes make a point of having somewhat contentious interactions between the two instructors at some point, to sort of demonstrate how that's, and not in the context of a sketch, right? Just like tensions come up, right? So like when they come up, you model like, okay, here's how we both deliver I'm not having a good time right now, and how I receive it, and setting up. There are some things that like everyone responds differently, but I think there are some practices that can be helpful for basically everyone. Like when you receive troubling feedback, or when someone tells you something you don't want to hear, thank them. This is something I do and something I tell everyone to do, because it puts you in the right mindset. They probably weren't thrilled to tell you this thing that you probably weren't going to like to hear, and so it sort of helps build that relationship.
So when somebody gives you something you don't want to hear, thank them. Yeah.
I think as a general practice, yeah. But that alone can, right? If everyone did that, I think it would help a lot. But that's not going to be a complete solution.
What else would you add? This is really good. I want to know more.
So that modeling from leadership, there's all kinds of, for more serious disagreements, there are all kinds of restorative justice models, depending on what's going on. I've had classes that were just really had a lot of like social dynamics issues, and we would have like big meetings with everyone to be like, okay, here's how these things are making me feel, like me as an instructor, and like how do other people feel about that. That doesn't always work, right? Like people might not feel comfortable expressing themselves in that context. But I think if you are in a position of authority, expressing that vulnerability yourself is a good way to help people feel more comfortable doing it.
You looked like you were going to say something.
I was, but Ashi and Dean just went through it. But yeah, I think the most important thing about giving and receiving feedback is respect. Like I feel if you do it in a respectful manner and you are conscious of other people's feelings or not necessarily their feelings, but you're conscious of what you're saying, you have sort of facts to back it up. I think those things go a long way in order to be able to have a constructive conversation around the feedback. Yeah.
Good advice. Cool. Okay. Still doing okay for time? Halfway. We've got time for a bit more. Okay. I was also interested in the idea of mistakes and how mistakes pan out in the teams you've worked in, right? So mistakes can be another moment when life gets difficult, when things haven't gone the way you wanted them to, somebody's done something stupid, or your whole product idea has turned out to be not so good, or whatever it is, right? So mistakes vary from like this little thing to huge, great thing. So I was wondering if you've got any good advice about how to handle mistakes. And perhaps what I'm really looking for is what kind of mistake have you seen and how have you seen it well handled in the past? Or, I guess, really badly handled. So can you think of a time when you encountered a mistake and it was either dealt with well or badly?
So I have a really good example. It happened to me. I started my job at Smile Identity about a year ago. And they have a lot of complicated systems that sort of work together. And within the first, say, 3 months or so, I was doing a deployment, and I thought I was being really clever and deploying at about 5 a.m. in the morning, so Nigeria wouldn't have started their day, and that's where our market is. And I deployed, and it wasn't going through, and I kept on trying, and then eventually the entire system crashed. And it was just at like the start of their work day, and so a lot of traffic was going to be going through. And of course, being someone new in the company, I was like really nervous, like crap, are they going to fire me? And the other portion is that I was the first South African engineer that was brought on the team. So the rest of the team is based in the US. And as you know, there's a 9-hour difference, time zone difference. So I was really nervous. I slacked a couple of people and went like, the system is down. And the way that the team pulled together was just amazing. So I sent my CTO a message and I was like, the system is down and this is the steps that happened. And I don't actually know what caused it to go down. It may or may not have been my fault.
Mistakes were made.
And it was like 3 o'clock or 2 a.m. in the morning for him. He got up. We brought another couple of team members on, 2 or 3. We all sat for like 4 hours on a call trying to debug the issue and trying to fix it. There was no blame attached to it. Nobody went like, oh, you crashed the entire system. They just pulled together really nicely. We tried to work through the problem and find solutions for it. And at the end of the day, it was just having that support system to know that if you make mistakes or if there's any failures, that people around you aren't going to blame you. There's just psychological safety in sort of what you're doing as a person. So that was my example of how embarrassed I was at the start of this year.
Thanks. I think we can all relate to this. Mistakes?
Yeah, I've also got a very similar experience. It was when I started at Luna at the beginning of the year, and we take it in turns to run the release cycles for the apps. And as part of my onboarding, I got the wonderful role of doing the next release cycle. And when released to prod, I accidentally sent a debug build into production, which in Luna we've got a bunch of debug options which allow you to switch to our staging environment and a lot of other interesting switches. And yeah, I realized this once I downloaded the updated app from the App Store. And yeah, I went to my boss and I said, well, I messed up. And he just turned around and he's like, that's fine, just fix it. And this is why we can deploy again and again. And I just went and I fixed it. I mean, pretty boring story actually. But yeah, just the nonchalant attitude was like, yeah, you made a mistake, just go fix it. I think that's a great attitude to have. And in other situations where we've had crises, the attitudes remain the same. At Luna, it's just, okay, there's a mistake, let's go and let's fix it. No blame, no blame, and just get together as a team and go sort it out.
I've got an example that was handled badly, which is kind of
Tasty.
in kind of direct opposition to the way your situations were handled. And maybe it's because of these situations that now it's handled some other way. But basically, it's kind of 2 examples. One was a client who launched a website that looked like another website, right? So the design, the flow, the illustrations all looked like another website that was live. And so they posted it online and they're like, oh, we're very proud of our new website. And I just kind of said, hey, this, you may want to check this out. And so then the CEO kind of privately messaged me and they're like, oh yeah, we're very sorry, our designer got carried away. And it was such an incredibly bad way to handle a situation like that because of 2 reasons. 1, you're blaming somebody who isn't there to defend themselves. 2, are you telling me that the junior designer sat there, designed the website, wrote the code, deployed it all by himself or herself, and the entire organization just wasn't involved? So that lack of accountability, I think, or shared accountability in any way, shape, or form is just a sign of a very kind of, in my opinion, ill organization culturally, and isn't an organization that's going to build meaningful or sustainable products and kind of experiences. And then the second example involves me is back when I used to work in advertising. There was a company that had a bunch of web banners that needed to go live, and I was the web banner guy. I was a banner boy. Used to design and make flash banners by the hundreds. I was like a factory. And I had to do something like 240 web banners in 24 hours or 48 hours. And so I didn't sleep for like 2 or 3 days straight. And the buttons, the call to actions said, we're supposed to get the full story. And when I get tired, I get quite cynical. And so I was alone in the office. Nobody else was there to support me. And I changed it from get the full story to get the fool's story. And then I just deployed all of those because I was too tired to care. So that wasn't so much a mistake as I think a sleep-deprived delusion. But the way the organization handled it wasn't great initially. They're kind of like, well, how can you do this? And they all started shouting at me. I was still too tired to care. So I just said to them, well, this is what happens when you give people this workload. I went, and I left. So I didn't handle it very well either. But when I came back the next day, I think they had a bit of an internal conversation and they went, well, I think at the end of the day, they still made millions of rands off of that banner run, so they weren't really too worried. And it was an easy fix, right? Because I had actually developed a system to change the copy outside of the banner. Afterwards, they're like, okay, cool, we'll change the way we do these things, right? And I think, sometimes you have to go through a bit of pain to learn a thing. But if you can try and prevent something like that happen, I think is good. And I learned a lot from the experience around saying no. It was very early in my career. So that's my thing around mistakes.
At Google, we got stickers for breaking shit.
You got what?
Stickers. Like stickers on your profile page. I got the sticker that says I broke Gmail for a lot of people. Because I broke Gmail for a lot of people. North Carolina, specifically.
And why were they giving out stickers for people who broke Gmail in North Carolina and others?
I mean, it's quite an accomplishment, no? Could you break Gmail for everyone in North Carolina? No.
No.
I mean, more generally, it's a general acknowledgement that especially if I was in site reliability engineering, you're definitely going to break something at some point, right? You're constantly pushing things to prod. It's mostly not, it's very hard to downright impossible to just take down all of Google, right? So you're probably not going to break anything. You might at most cost the company a few $100,000 per minute or something.
So this kind of leads us on to the question of what do you do to make sure you don't make the same mistakes again? But that could be the wrong question. It might just be, what do you do about mistakes? Because I guess Google says mistakes are going to happen. Right? It's like mistakes are going to happen, and it's actually a good thing because it means the engineers are trying stuff and they're not afraid to move fast. So we're going to reward mistakes. But at the same time, Dean said they changed their work process to avoid completely crushing their junior banner designers. So what are the tactics for dealing with mistakes if you're kind of running your team?
Well, again, if you have stickers, you want to get different stickers and thereby you only do that if you're making different mistakes. So
if you get the same sticker twice, are you in trouble?
No.
Can you get the same sticker twice?
Also no. Just the system doesn't let you have multiple badges. I think the more, multiple badges of the same kind, yeah. I think the more serious answer is maybe you do postmortems, right? Kind of dissect what happened and mostly what happened when and what the causes of those things were. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this SRE released all of the front-end machines in this cluster, and why was that so easy to do? Maybe it shouldn't have just been a command, and why was it a typo? Why was it possible to make a typo? Oh, we're just typing these commands out over and over and over again. We're robots. Maybe we could have a robot do it. What are the blockers there? And then you can maybe actually fix your processes.
I think not keeping these mistakes a secret is really important, actually acknowledging it as a company and using the opportunity for the individual to learn from his or her mistake, but also for the entire team to be able to learn from these mistakes. because when you acknowledge these mistakes openly, it provides learning opportunities. So, like Ashi was saying, being able to do postmortems on these mistakes that happened really lead to better processes, better technology. It just leads to innovation.
And while doing the postmortems, you mustn't be a jerk, but you mustn't be oversensitive. So mistakes they're not about, it's not about blame. The word blame came flying out as well. It's not about blame, about, well, you did this thing, John, that friend John of yours, yeah, in a lot of trouble. It's you're a bad person. It's about, here's a thing that happened. How do we prevent the thing from happening again?
Right. They're in fact called blameless postmortems.
Sorry?
They're in fact called blameless postmortems. Like you account for what happened, including like who did what. But if an operating engineer could break something, then the assumption is that, well, this person was the operating engineer who did break that thing, but someone else was going to do it at some point, right? Which is it's like a very, very safe assumption as you scale, right? Every mistake that can be made will be made, and whoever is unlucky enough to like be sitting in that role is the person who's sitting in that role today.
Cool.
The breaker. The breaker of chains.
The breaker of chains.
Sorry. The unborn something, so I don't know the whole thing. Has no one here seen Game of Thrones? Khaleesi, the breaker
The only
of
one I
chains?
know is I drink and know things.
Okay. Right.
That will be ours soon. You know things, soon you will drink. Yes, but first, we're going to go to the audience for some extra difficult questions, because we've seen what they're capable of, right? Yeah, they can be brutal. But maybe they'll be kind. We don't know, do we? We will see. Audience, are you ready? Yes, somebody is ready in the audience, sort of towards the back left. We're going in.
Hi guys. So a common theme that we've heard about today concerns diversity. And then we also hear that developers find that the environment that they work in is extremely important to them, especially here. I find that these seem to be divergent goals, as are many things in life. You're trying to optimize multiple dimensions at once, and it can be very difficult to weight them. But what I'm really interested in is trying to address the different personality types that you encounter in the workplace. So people value different things for various reasons. And the real question that I'm trying to get at, I guess, is how can we objectively measure whether we're doing the right thing or moving in the correct direction? Like oftentimes you'll make a decision or you'll respond to a concern in a certain way, you'll solve a problem, but there's no way for me to know, like, was this the correct decision? You could even look back over a year from now. You can't really tell if that particular decision was the good one or not. Do you guys have any tactics, strategies for trying to objectify away one's decisions rather than just being like, it felt like a good idea at the time?
Did everybody get that? So
Yeah.
it's like, how do you know if you made a good decision when you're in management and you've got no control? It's like, how much more messed up would my team be if I had done X instead of Y, is kind of how I'm interpreting that. So how do you know if your decisions are good?
Well, at Luno, we're pretty obsessed with data and metrics. So always reflecting back after projects, etc., looking at the data and seeing the effect, and if it's a good effect or a bad effect. If it's good, cool, move on to the next thing. Let's make it even better. And if we see a dip, we go back, we reanalyze what our assumptions were and try another thing, fix it, iterate and improve, watch the metrics, and keep on repeating.
This will make it, you will quickly fall into the situation where you optimize for what you can measure, which is fine. You can only systematically optimize for the things you can measure, but I think you do need to like prior to doing all that measuring and optimizing, like articulate what your values are and figure out how you can attach metrics to, if not those, the like actual incarnation of those values in the world, then at least some proxy to them.
A North Star. A North Star, something we can all work towards at the company.
Yeah, something you want.
Yeah, so I think the metrics matter. So earlier I spoke about using time and information as a metric. So, if you've made a decision and you're trying to figure out if it was the right decision, there are no right or wrong decisions. There are only things that are most or least fit for purpose based on context. So you've got to really kind of maybe in some ways let go of the need for certainty to go, well, was that or is this the right decision? And that helps because it kind of means you get a bit more fluidity in being able to change the decision and not go, oh, well, John, this guy is messing up, made this bad decision and he's the manager and so it's all his fault. Example, I once hired somebody into my team, to a design team that had zero design experience and obviously everybody looked at me like, what are you doing, Dean? But I hired that person for a very particular reason, and that could have gone one of two ways. It could have never gelled, and the effectiveness of the team could have gone down in terms of what we were trying to achieve. So if we didn't start achieving things, because then I would have to have a different decision, change the decision by either giving the person a different job or figuring something else out. But the reverse happened where new perspective, really good challenge, different quality of conversation, completely different lens to look at the same problems, and all of a sudden you start to design new things. And so, net, it seems like a good decision. Maybe not the right decision, but an effective one. And I think that's the difference for me, at least, when I'm looking at different things is, to look at effectiveness rather than the right and wrong, because I don't think I can even ever know that. And I make the assumption that I will make the mistake. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know it's coming. And so that lets me start, because I know it's coming, I know it's on the route. So that really, really helps from especially from if you're trying to weigh up the diversity thing, because I think the conversation's also been around, where do you, the juice and the squeeze. You've got to get a diverse team, but sometimes it takes longer because your biases will let you go, well, I know I have predictable outcomes. So if I hire or I use this tool, I know what's going to happen. The problem with that predictable outcome is it means, by definition, it can't change, which means it can't get better. It only can stay the same or get worse. And so then there you kind of drift into failure. So, yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Okay, so how do you know? So I think what we're saying is if things got better, then it was a good decision at the simplest level. But you can't know whether things are as good as they could be. You can only know that they're better than they were. And I think we kind of got two angles there. One is about the product. So if I've got a product and I've got metrics and I've got analytics I can look at on that product and I can see, okay, I changed this feature, now more members of my audience are doing X, well, that's an improvement. And if you believe in the power of continuous improvement like Toyota, then, well, hey, things are going to get better. For a team, your metrics are much less visible. It's more about how happy is my team or how productive is my team.
Yeah, I think productivity, effectiveness, retention, how many people have conversations over cigarettes that don't smoke. Those kinds of things you can kind of, so people tend to form, when things are going badly in a team, they tend to form what I call therapy groups. So we find the people that agree with our point of view so they can validate it, and then the more factions you have, the more unhealthy the team is. So it's part of there's like a scale of dysfunctions in the team, and so you've got lack of trust, lack of accountability, and so you can measure those things by looking at the occurrences of contributions to team meetings, how many people actually speak up about certain things, or how many people sit there, wait for the meeting to go be over, or go have a fake cigarette, talk about how stupid it was, and come back. So you can measure those things if you're paying attention, right? And I think that's the thing, is to really, if you're in any leadership or team lead role, your role is to pay attention to the humans. Because if you're not doing that, then you're going to end up with bad product, actually, in my opinion, because it's a symptom of what the people do. And I think, so those metrics change, right? So you're looking for trust, accountability, people going first to solve a problem. So do people sit and go, oh, well, that's Dean's responsibility, or John, let's use John again. So we don't touch that thing, right? And so you don't have that shared accountability because he does that part of the process. Then you've probably got, that's a metric, right, to see the occurrences of that. And so I would use those, definitely.
What he said, yeah.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can take surveys. Those obviously have problems. You can do your own observations, which is also, you have to sort of correct for your own biases. Probably the most reliable way is for the company. I don't really like companies providing alcohol, but many do. So you observe the alcohol consumption. You're like, oh, we're buying just more whiskey than we were before per capita. So something is not right. Everyone's like, no, that's a bad idea. But look, you're going to buy the alcohol anyway. You may as well track it, right? And then you have to normalize for the season because people, yeah.
If we use that as a measurement in the Cape Town office in Luno, we clearly have a major people problem.
Well, it's the delta, right? It's like, oh, people are drinking more than they were.
So you've got a baseline high whiskey consumption, but if the delta is positive, then you
It's
have
the change you measure. You've got to measure the change.
So I also want to challenge something you said earlier, which is you said that you know if a decision was good. You never know that. You never know that a given decision was the right one or the wrong one. What you know is that like over some period of time in aggregate, some metric has gotten better or worse, which what it tells you is not that it tells you that overall your decisions were leading to better or worse results. And so the guidance you can take from that is not, oh, all of these particular decisions were bad or all of these were good, but something is wrong in our decision-making process during this time, or something is right. You look at how you are or are not meeting your metrics, and then you can sort of try and decide, like, okay, what needs to change in our process.
And what sort of time period do you think is associated with that? Because I've now got this idea of a kind of a glide path of something changing as I make a series of many decisions over time. What sort of time period are we looking at? Are we looking at a quarter or a year? Or how quickly can you aggregate your decisions to come up with an analysis of your decision-making capability?
I mean, it depends on what it is, right? On the elasticity of the system. So if you're talking about so like I taught at a boot camp or at a couple of boot camps, and if you're talking about how does a curriculum change impact the quality of our education, where we decide that quality means our graduates can get hired because they want to get hired, and that's like kind of the point, then it's going to take a while, right? It's like at least 180 days before they can go through the program and then like be trying to get jobs for a while, and then that's just like one cohort really. So it's not because cohorts have variance. So it's going to take like probably a year before you really know, okay, this was a good decision, which makes it hard because in a year you probably want to change the curriculum again, and so. Well, should we? I don't know. Should we exercise a different process? And then if you're talking about processes that's one decision, right? One decision for like changing the curriculum once. So if you want to, what you actually want to do is figure out what the process for changing a curriculum should be. And that will take probably more time than boot camps have really been around right now, which is why I think nobody really knows that the model works. Like we know that it worked for like this little flash in a pan, but will it adapt? I don't know that we know how it will adapt. On the other hand, if you're talking about the social dynamics of a team, I feel like we can sort of like come up with metrics and take surveys and all that, but pretty fast. Like you know within weeks probably if the new hire was a bad idea.
I also think that there's different types of metrics you can use to determine things. So you can have the long-term metrics that are going to inform your next decisions, but then there's also the shorter-term metrics that you can start implementing to actually, so in the example of a boot camp, instead of waiting up until the time the curriculum is implemented for, say, a year, you can use other measures of impact on like a weekly basis. Perhaps it may be things like attendance rates, or it could be engagement levels, things like that on a shorter term. So you'd use a combination of long-term metrics and short-term metrics to give you the best effect.
Awesome. I think you got a pretty thorough answer there. I hope you're satisfied, because you should be. It was good. All right. Any more? Have we got another one? Oh, yes.
Hi. I've been enabling people to ask questions all day, but I haven't asked mine. So I have two, actually. One is about mistakes. So the situations or the examples that you mentioned, they all had somewhat happy endings. So I had a situation that was on the other end of the spectrum once. So I also made a mistake where I deployed to production a debugging environment. And then it was pretty quick where we picked it up. And as soon as we picked it up, I went ahead and fixed it without having anybody like tell me you have to fix it. But then at the end of the day, I was still getting blamed, and the situation wasn't like well handled. So I think that the question is more around like, what do you recommend people that get in that situation to do, or how to handle it, to just like make the business improve, or try to like kickstart that process? Or if not possible, then what are the options? And then I'll ask the other one after.
So I personally feel like there's two options. The one is you go ahead and you try and change things. So you actually approach the people around you and you have a discussion about it, and take on the approach where you actually convey how you think it should have been dealt with. And then the other option is, if you're not willing to put in the effort, find a place that treats you better. Those are the two options available personally.
So something you're always empowered to do is you can, even if the process at your company, maybe it's not to do a blameless postmortem, it's to have someone yell at you for 15 minutes, you can still do the blameless postmortem and publish it, and use that both as a model of like, here's how, like subtly or not so subtly, here's how I think we should deal with these things in the future. It also looks very good. It just like looks good to everyone that like, oh, you're like clearly defining like what went wrong, and like you're taking responsibility for your parts of it. You will probably also identify structural issues that do need to be changed. Like it probably shouldn't, none of these cases it should not be easy to push the debug version into prod, right? There's some if statement that needed to be written somewhere. And so that, and identifying that, it both like looks good from a career standpoint. For me, like when I've like gotten awful feedback, it's like very psychologically helpful to do that. And then I think you can fix things at your company, at least regarding that part of the process, if not the actual feedback process.
Cool. I'm not sure you get to ask your last question, because I think we have to wrap up. No, we have time for your last question.
Okay. So this one it touches on the principle of charity that Warren mentioned. So I like the idea of the principle of charity because it removes a lot of like situations that don't really lead anywhere, and they just become blockers. But if you think about it, it could be actually a response to a preceding problem, which is like telling people how to deal with people that are being like snarky or like cracking jokes in like a unpleasant manner. So how do you prevent the principle of charity to become an excuse for people to actually be that type of snarky or like the jokester, because there's the principle of charity as an excuse for that?
Okay, so one of the things that I was unable to talk about in my talk was that is the flip side of the principle of charity where, maybe I touched on it a little bit, but just have general respect. So when you're having, when you're talking to someone, yeah, humor's good. I'm a big advocate for being a clown, but there's a limit, and you need to understand where that line is personally, and show respect to your peers and your bosses, obviously. And how that happens, that's I would hope a lot of people understand that, but also, they're going back to the one-on-ones. These kind of things can get addressed and worked on with the managers, and just have respect. That's the flip side of principle of charity, because principle of charity is there to, be your last line of defense if that respect fails. It's just to take that emotion, that perceived emotion, away from the conversation. But if everyone's talking respectfully, there may be very little need to be applying the principle of charity.
Is the principle of charity like you interpret what the other person is saying in sort of the most charitable light possible?
Exactly.
Even if you are not actually, even if that is not genuinely your interpretation?
Well, yeah, I would try and assume best, even if the person was being snarky. I mean, there's social cues to pick up when someone is being a jerk.
I don't like that. I don't like it. No, I think if someone is adding, if I believe that someone is adding charge to a situation, it's dishonest for me not to respond to that in some way. If I have a reaction to it, I think you should share that. Otherwise, you're kind of having this like weird slant interaction. I can see it being good for diffusing interactions where like you are seeing something that is legitimately not there. But I think you can also. So when I used to have a lot of trouble actually whenever I would have an interaction that felt uncomfortable for me, or they were giving me something, or I felt like I just didn't like what they were saying, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I would like really lock up. And what helped me get over that was actually reading Nonviolent Communication. Very helpful book. Highly recommend it. Where Marshall Rosenberg recommends basically asking questions in that context. So like, is this what you mean? Like, do you, like someone tells an off-color joke, like, oh, like, what do you mean by that? Or is this the implication? Do you have this belief that I'm ascribing to you? Just so we can like be on the same page about that. And I think phrasing those as questions, like putting yourself in the interrogative mode, makes it, at least for me, it makes it much easier to present without judgment, to like navigate that without judgment. It's not that I won't later judge them. It's like, yes, I think we have gone on this journey of exploration, and I think we've decided that your values are very different from mine. But even that, it's like you end up coming to a model of the person that is, I feel like, more holistic by deciding, okay, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to constantly be asking, and that's how I'll deal with a challenging situation. It doesn't always work. In particular, it doesn't really provide resistance. It does help foster connection, but sometimes afterwards, I do feel like, okay, it was great that I navigated that situation. I feel like I was very in my integrity in doing it. I don't feel like I blew up. I felt like my emotional responses were in check, but I do feel like someone needs to call that person out, and I didn't really necessarily do that.
Yeah, I think just on the, like when you say respect's different for different people. And that's where it gets really hard, because you may think you're being respectful from your background or whatever, but for somebody else, they receive it as a really disrespectful thing. And so that's where sometimes the mismatch happens, right? I fully agree with the first kind of approach should be to be curious and interested around why that would be the case. So if you're seeing in the other person that it's not received well. So if you're making the snarky joke or you're and you're like, if your response is that person's being oversensitive, then you probably don't have a piece of information that you need, because I don't think people are just oversensitive. There's a routing thing that's happening there. And I've had that several times with people, line managers, that have made jokes that are just not okay. And, you've got to really kind of go, listen, do you even know this thing that you're doing is really bad? And then you've got one or two things that happen. Either they go, oh, I didn't know that, or they get defensive and go, oh, you're being oversensitive. Then you've got to do a bit of a juice and a squeeze thing. Well, is this asshole? Okay, I don't want to work there or not. So at the end of the day, it depends on what your role is in that team and whatever. And if it's not your business and you work for, you can get to that point where you go, okay, there's not a fit here, and you've got to move on. Otherwise, you're spending willpower just to do your day job, and that's just not worth it long term. But yeah, so I think measuring respect is always interesting for me, because you can't assume that your version of respect is the same for everybody. And I think that's really important.
I've got to stop it there, guys. I reckon the things were just getting started, actually. This was amazing. So presumably things will carry on over beers upstairs. They're pointing upstairs. They're like, upstairs. So if you want to take issue with this or explore it further, you can. We're going to head upstairs. And thank you very much for bringing the energy, listening, giving us great questions. And thank you very much to these four amazing people for sharing yet more of their knowledge. Cool.